What they spend a lot of time on is fantasy conversations they'll never have. Imagining how they could tell the person off, mic drop moments they'll never really happen. This is just fantasy. This is just like how to feel satisfied and like, I can do this and I can tell them this and I'll point out this and I'll tell them that no one else likes them in the office. You're never going to do that. So it's just indulging a fantasy conversation you will not have.
All right, let's kick off today's show. Today we're talking with Guy Winch, psychologist and author of Mind Over Grind. Guy spent years studying how work stress bleeds into your personal life and robs you of the things that make you human. You'll learn how to spot the invisible ways grind culture controls you, build rituals that protect your personal time, and use your mind as the one variable you can control. Guy shares why rumination steals more hours than work, how rituals signal your brain to unwind, the real difference between rest and recharge, and why triple dipping vacations multiplies recovery time. Welcome to the show, Guy. It's great to have you.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
I think many in our audience have obviously seen the rise of grind culture online, feel the pressure to grind. What is the thesis behind Mind Over Grind and what's going on with this grind culture?
So the thesis is that there are many ways, some of them we're aware of, but many we're unaware of, in which the grind kind of catches up with us. Stress and grind are no longer contained to the office, to the workplace. They spill over and they affect our lives outside of work, even more than they affect our lives in work. They affect our relationships. They affect our loved ones. They affect our emotional intelligence, aspects of our personality. They really impact us in all kinds of conscious and unconscious ways. And people might not be aware, or probably are not aware of the extent of it and how much of themselves they're amputating year after year and becoming these very narrow people who are really just about the grind.
What are some of those invisible ways that maybe we haven't thought of? Because some of them feel pretty obvious. We know the effects of stress on us, but what are some of those invisible ways that top performers might not even realize?
Well, for example, a lot of us overwork, and it's necessary sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's very, very common when I ask people, okay, but when's the last time you went to a physical? When's the last time you saw a dentist? When's the last time you literally took care of medical stuff? Oh, I keep pushing that off, but it's been a while. For many people, their relationships are severely impacted. They get home, let's say they have kids, and they're still so much in work mode that when their kid is just going up to them to give mom or dad a hug, they stiffen because it feels like an intrusion. And they know that they're irritable, but they don't understand that they're conveying to their kids, you wanting a hug from me feels intrusive, feels annoying. And it's doing that kind of damage. There are many aspects of ourselves that we don't get to express during the workday.
Absolutely.
And that we used to be able to express, and now we haven't really given oxygen to for a long time, so much so that they've atrophied. Like, when's the last time we were silly or goofy or fun or, all of those things? For a lot of people, I say, when's the last time you had fun? And they go, I have fun. And I go, like, when?
Right.
And then I do, and they can think of one thing they did last month that was kind of fun. In other words, work takes over our lives almost entirely. And if not in actual action, in preoccupation.
Absolutely. And I think for so many of us, we live now with this device in our pocket that is always connected to work. So we used to be able to leave it at the office. When I think of my family growing up, there was no device that brought work home with us. And even in those moments where we're with friends and family, people we care about, that device is ever present. And we've even talked on the show about the silent notifications that you think you're hearing because you're just thinking about work. You're preoccupied with work.
And I say to people, I often ask, when does your workday end? When do you finish work? And they always say to me, they give me a round hour. Oh, it's at 6, it's at 7, it's at 8. And that's not when your workday ends. Your workday only ends when you stop thinking about work. And if you think about things in that way, then for a lot of people, the workday doesn't end because they're preoccupied with work. And the other thing is we don't really distinguish well between what's a useful preoccupation with work, when we're actually figuring something out or doing work after hours versus just ruminating about the stressful things or the upsetting things or the conflict we had with a coworker that day or the thing that we want to say to our manager that we didn't say, and we fantasize about all these conversations. We'll never have them.
Right.
But we spend hours figuring that out, or this person was rude to me in the meeting and dismissive. They use the hand gesture and that's so annoying. And you can spend your entire evening lost in that thought that's unproductive, keeps you stressed out, floods your body with cortisol and other kinds of things. So there's a lot of ways in which it's not productive time that we're spending
Absolutely
thinking about
not.
work. It's harmful time, which we need to reclaim.
So you say it didn't always used to be like this. There were parts of ourselves that we would show at work. What's happened in the workplace that's now robbed us of that?
Well, the workplace has become much more challenging and much more of a grind. We know, for example, over the past few years that work stress and burnout symptoms have peaked, even as awareness of stress and burnout have peaked and efforts to have more of a work-life balance have peaked. So how is it that we're more aware, we're trying to do more, yet we're more stressed and burnt out than ever? And what's changed is, and I think especially since the pandemic, that boundary between work and home. And I'm not just talking about people who work from home, obviously, in which the boundary is, a little vague to begin with. But the boundary, psychologically, we went through the shutdowns, we worked from home, that distinction, the division between work life and home life has gotten eroded significantly, not just in our own minds, but in the minds of our employers, who feel much freer to email us at all hours and expect to get a response at all hours and being upset or annoyed if they don't. And so there's just much less of a sanctuary. Home used to be the sanctuary from work where we go after.
Right.
And it's not so much where we go after now. It's where a lot of work still happens.
Yeah. And when I think about my family, again, growing up, there was that drive home from work that was kind of the bookend to your day, that ritual of like closing my work. Now I could think about dinner, thinking about spending time with my family. And as we're work from home, there's no drive, there's no ritual to even wind down anymore. It's just always ever present in our minds.
And even if there is, for those who don't work from home, even if you are driving home or taking the subway or the train or whatever the thing would be, you are probably still trying to get some work done during. And when you get home, again, this rumination, we are creatures that we need to process upsetting things.
Yeah.
And we know that bullying, harassment are, at real high percentages at work. But so is incivility, rudeness, dismissiveness. Those happen at 80-90% of people experience those things. That's the kind of stuff that we ruminate about. Why did she say that thing to me? And how did he not do this? And all the preoccupations of the office politics. That's something that we will ruminate about when we get home. Even again, this is unpaid overtime that we're doing because we're basically at work when we're doing it. And again, we don't distinguish that. We don't stop it and go, this is not useful. We indulge it and we can spend hours spinning over it.
Well, I think there's two dynamics that are going on at work that I'd love to discuss. One is obviously, as we've turned into this always on environment and work follows us home, there's expectations to return phone calls, messages, Slacks at all hours of the day, 24/7, even on vacation.
Yes.
And on top of that, we now have a dynamic where there's less stability in your job. So we're seeing mass layoffs in jobs that used to be stable. There's now AI coming into the picture, and people are saying, hey, that sounds great, guys. Like, I wish I wasn't grinding, but I have no choice but to grind to keep my job.
And if it were about grinding and getting your work done, great. I'm not against people actually doing their work.
Right.
There are hours a day in which we are grinding without getting anything done. Because when you're home and you're ruminating about work, you're grinding. When you're at work and you're just spinning after the meeting and just like obsessing about how this happened or that happened, when you're waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning, worried or anxious about what's happening and what's going to happen with the mergers, what's going to happen with the layoffs, then you are grinding and you're not actually getting anything done. And we don't have the self-discipline or the wherewithal at the moment, most of us, to distinguish and to know like what I'm doing right now is harmful. What I'm doing right now is not healthy, and I have control over it, at least theoretically. I do not have to give in to that temptation to ruminate when after hours, when I'm not getting anything done. I do not have to go to bed so anxious that I'm going to wake up at 3 a.m. There are ways in which I have to assert deliberate control, intentional control, and manage our mind in order to deal with the challenges of this current workplace.
So let's talk about that Goldilocks zone, as you put it in the book, that we should really look and strive to be in.
The Goldilocks zone is how we manage stress and pressure. And, when stress and pressure are low, we don't perform at our best because the stakes aren't that high. There's a Goldilocks zone where as pressure and stress go up, where we perform at our best. Past that zone, we start to impair our performance because we are not managing those stresses and pressures well. Therefore, it's not about eliminating stress or pressure. It's not realistic, and it's not practical, and it's not useful because we don't want to be right at the low part of the curve. We won't do that well either. But we want to lower it enough so that we are starting to function at our peak again rather than function, poorly because we're self-sabotaging, because we're mismanaging the stress. This book is all about how we manage our mind given the pressures that we're dealing with in this unusually difficult workplace. And the workplace isn't going to change anytime soon. It's not getting easier anytime soon. If there were signs of that, that would be terrific. There are not.
Right.
There are signs of the opposite. And so it behooves us even more. It's even more imperative that we learn a little bit more and become more sophisticated in how we use the apparatus of our mind and how we use our psychology to get more out of our workday and to be able to rest and get oxygen and recover from the workday when we can.
I feel it's like a ratchet. It just takes a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more of you until you don't even realize that you are the one opening your laptop on the family vacation that you had planned for months and months, and you don't even have the ability you feel to unplug. So to those in our audience who are now maybe recognizing that they're close to that or they are there, what can we start to do to reassert that control?
So part of the people that this happens to most are people who say to me, well, but I'm self-employed. It can happen to me. But when we're passionate about our jobs, when we are really excited about our careers, we're most at risk.
Right.
Because that's when it doesn't feel, we're not really working. I want to see. I want to check in. I want to get this done. This is great. But you're on vacation.
Yeah.
But this is the weekend. You're supposed to spend it with your family. So the fact that you're excited about it doesn't mean that you're taking away from something else. Doesn't mean that you're preventing yourself from having actually an experience that's also really important. Because at the end of the day, you're not going to recall, which account you landed or which this happened. You're going to recall the moments with relationships. You're going to recall experiences that were meaningful.
Right.
And so you're actually depriving yourself and your loved ones of being able to enjoy that with you.
Yeah. And I think in those moments, it sometimes is a spouse or a child that will point out to us like, hey, can I actually get your attention? You've been completely disconnected from me in this moment that I would love to create that core memory with you.
And then we get annoyed at them. You don't get it. And actually, they do. Because their priorities are simpler and more accurate. Their priorities are, but this is our time together now. No? I mean, this is family vacation, or this is our family time, or this is an evening where we're supposed to have a date night.
Right. And there's nothing worse than you being perpetually the one that's canceling those things, canceling the date night because work has encroached so much on your personal life.
It's interesting. Over COVID, over the pandemic, people would say to me, you don't understand, I can't not do that because, the sky would fall.
Right.
If I were to not respond to an email, if I were to be absent for a day, if I were truly to be on vacation. And then they would get COVID and they would be absent for a day or more and the sky didn't fall. In other words, we very much over-assess our absolute, essentialness and the essentialness of every little thing, every little beat of our workday, and it turns out that when we dial back just a little bit, the sky doesn't fall and our jobs don't collapse. People who work, and I think many who work 60, 70-hour weeks and more, right? If you dial back 10%, no one's noticing because no one knows if you put in 3 hours on the Saturday or 6. You're home. No one's noticing. But you have to do that, again, not just for the sake of it, for the sake of having a life outside of work so that you're a more complex person, so that you can express those parts of your personality that you don't get to express anymore that you probably forgot existed, but used to be meaningful to you.
Yeah, I think as the economy has shifted, so many of us have moved from physical labor to intellectual labor, and that requires you being deep in thought and actually getting the deep work done. But much of our day right now is spent in meetings and sending messages back and forth that don't even create the time and space to do the deep, meaningful work that we try to chase, which is ultimately should be our goal for the work that we choose.
That's another problem with the current workplace. I mean, there's just so many meetings and so much time that you have to show up, but it actually doesn't really get work done. So then people are saying, well, then I need to get the work done at night.
Right.
And I'm like, and even if it's true that you have to get the work done at night, the other thing you have to get done at night is actually spend some time with your family or do the thing that recharges you.
All right, self-care.
A little bit. It's the self-care. And self-care doesn't mean a massage necessarily.
Right.
Self-care means addressing your needs. It means doing the things that you enjoy doing. So it's about finding time to do both, but not doing away with those things that are recharging for you, that make you feel like you, that you actually enjoy, because that's what life is about. So you can't have a lot of it, but you have to have some of it.
So let's walk through the recognition now that this is a problem in our life. What can we start to do to make the steps necessary to reclaim that time back for ourselves, for our family that's so important?
So the first thing I would suggest is you really have to recognize when you're actually just ruminating and obsessing or worrying about work without actually getting any work done, because that is absolutely wasted time. And that can be many, many hours a week.
Absolutely.
And those hours a week are hours in which you're not just being unproductive, you're actually doing damage to yourself. That's what's adding a lot of stress to your week unnecessarily, because again, nothing productive is happening. So you have to recognize that, oh, I'm ruminating right now and I'm not getting anything useful done. So, and then you have to ruminate, bust the rumination. In other words, you really have to get out of that habit. And the thing I suggest in the book, one of the techniques I suggest in the book, in simplified form, because it's a little complicated, is you have to convert the thing that you're ruminating about to a problem that can be solved. Because if you're converting it into a problem that can be solved, that's a finite amount of thinking. So my coworker took credit for the thing, and I keep obsessing about how that's unfair, and this other unfair thing happened to me, and with that coworker, and he's been unfair to other people, and that can go on forever. Turn it into a problem that can be solved. What, if anything, do I need to do to address the situation is the only question present. Right. Do I need to talk to him or her? Do I need to address it in some way? If so, what's the best way to do it? If I want to address it, what's the outcome I'm seeking? If that's the outcome I'm seeking, what's the best way to get it? That is a very contained series of questions you can answer in 20 minutes.
And it makes it actionable. Either you decide to have the
actionable.
Conversation or...
It has to be. Yes,
right,
because that's the thing. It's actionable. Because once you've then resolved it, you know what to do. You'll feel the relief, but you don't have to keep ruminating about it because you figured it out.
Yeah. I just feel, unfortunately, for so many of us, we enjoy trying to solve those problems and play with it in our mind, think that all the different combinations of the conversations we could have or should have had, and sit there and honestly, like, we'll spend more time almost in that than in productive hours, because it does feel personal. Like you feel personally attacked in that moment where someone else took credit from you, or now you're going to be held back because of a performance review around that one thing that happened.
And I think that's a little optimistic, what you said, because I think it would be great if people would actually spending the time trying to play around with the best solution. What they spend a lot of time on is fantasy conversations they'll never have. Imagining how they could tell the person off, mic drop moments they'll never really happen. This is just fantasy. This is just like how to feel satisfied and like, I can do this and I can tell them this and I'll point out this and I'll tell them that no one else likes them in the office. You're never going to do that. So it's just indulging a fantasy conversation you will not have. If you're actually thinking about what to say that will be useful, that's fine, but it doesn't take hours. It's the fantasy conversations that take hours. I wish I could say this. I wish I could say that. And it feels satisfying in the moment. So it feels like, that's a good thing. But it's just getting yourself worked up because you're not going to have that conversation.
Work is interesting in a lot of ways because there's other forces at play. So when we think about our personal lives, we have a lot of autonomy and control over how we spend our time, what we work on, what we choose to do. But work, there's managers, there's team members. We're jockeying for roles and trying to get credit. And we spend a lot of time thinking about the people part of work. And that consumes us. And for those of us who feel like we don't have managers who care about us, who don't actually think about our mental health at all, then the grind amps even more. So how do we deal with that where there's a lot of mismanagement going on? There's a lot of bad managers out there that create a lot of this for us.
That's absolutely true. And I want to start with a message to managers. The research shows that you, as a manager, exhibiting caring without being able to solve the problem, because you might not be able to solve the problem, but if you just show that you care about the fact that the problem is causing distress, it is huge for your employees. It is huge for your subordinates because they will feel cared for. That will reduce their stress significantly. And all you did is indicate that you're aware that there's an issue. And even though you can't solve it, you feel, sorry that there is one, you're aware and you care about it. So it's not difficult, but we don't teach that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but that would be great. But you're right. Most people feel uncared for. They feel that their needs are not addressed. They feel that no one really cares about their mental health or their emotional health.
Or their growth, at work.
Their growth, their development. This is what quiet quitting was about when quiet quitting was a big thing. Like, people don't care about my development. People don't care about my work-life balance. So I'm taking matters into my own hand. Now, they weren't taking matters into their own hand. They were just withdrawing their engagement in a way which doesn't really solve anything. It's a temporary strategy, not a long-term solution. But it's very difficult to spend your entire day working really hard for people you perceive don't really care.
Yeah, it's next to impossible.
It's extremely challenging and it's very demoralizing and it's also very stressful. And one of the feelings that is big in the workplace now is resentment.
Yeah.
And for those reasons.
Another thing that we work with leaders on is clarity in their communication. There's so much bandwidth that gets wasted when you don't communicate clearly and you leave ambiguity that team members or subordinates now have to deal with. And it's part of that stress that they're carrying that leads to inaction, leads to lack of productivity, and them taking their work home with them and ruminating on things because it wasn't clear what the expectations were, what you were looking for, how they were supposed to communicate or work together.
What I say to leaders when I'm working with them is that if more than once a subordinate, a team member, someone else doesn't deliver what they're supposed to deliver to you, you have to do a check about how clear you were in communicating those expectations or requirements, no matter how crisp you think you were.
Right.
And the only way to do that, and this might sound infantilizing or ridiculous, is to then the next time you give them this instruction, whether in writing, whether verbally, is to say to them, now tell me back what the expectation is. And you will be shocked at how often what you get back is close, but it's a nuance away and it's a critical nuance at that.
Absolutely. And then it gets even worse when the game of telephone is played and now it's communicated to other team members that you weren't there for.
Right. So that feedback loop has to be, now tell me back. Now tell me back. Is that clear? Yes. Great. Tell me back. And not in an offensive way, like I just want to make sure you understand. I want to make sure I communicate it clearly because we are all subject to that. When we're rushed, when we're stressed, then we drop bandwidth. We drop IQ points. Stress, takes away a lot of our, mental game. And so we might not be communicating clearly and we might be super clear in our intention, but what came out of our mouth was not.
The other big thing with leaders is when they choose to communicate. They can set the tone in a lot of ways. So when you feel that you're in this always on work environment, you can actually break that. You can be the one to schedule the email to send the following morning and not send it after dinner and not send it in the evening with the expectation that now it's mental load for a team member that they have to see the email in their inbox at 9:00 at night and now they have to wrestle with it all night. It can wait until the morning. And oftentimes we feel the need to get it off our plate. It feels good. My inbox is clear. It's out of my hands, but we're creating so much mental load that then boomerangs back to us too. And we all feel like we're drowning in it.
But you said something so simple about the scheduling. It's such a simple thing like scheduling. Yes, we want to get it off our plate, but schedule it.
Right.
It's just one extra step. Schedule it. Because you might think, and I hear this all the time, but I didn't need them to respond right away. They don't know that.
They have no idea.
And they're trying to look good.
Right.
So just schedule it. Add that thing. If it's not urgent, schedule it. Teach them that they're going to get emails at 8 or 9 in the morning. And if one does come at 9 o'clock at night, it must be important.
Yeah. Then we really know, instead of
Yes.
everything at 9, and now they're trying to sort through it.
And I get the idea of like you want it off your plate, right? It's that Friday afternoon. I get a lot of stuff on Friday afternoon.
Yeah.
You know, I know nobody wants an answer on Friday afternoon. They're just getting rid of their stuff for the weekend.
Right.
So I might respond to it on Friday afternoon, but it'll be scheduled for Monday.
Yeah. And I think also having clear understanding of different forms of communication. So if it's really an emergency, I'm going to text you. But if it's something that isn't that important, I'm going to email you. If it's something that I need by the end of the day, I'm going to Slack you. And have boundaries around the communication styles as well, so that your team can actually manage what's coming from you as a communicator and leader.
Right. And that benefits you as a leader, because if your team is less stressed out, if they're less pressured, if they're less harried at work, they will perform better. They will actually bring more of their A game. You can't be in your A game 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. You cannot. You're being compromised at some point. So you will get more out of them by taking these extra steps. It behooves you. It will benefit you because your team will be more productive. They'll be more satisfied. They'll be less stressed out, less burnt out. So these are simple things you can do to get more out of people, not less.
So outside of rumination, what are some other ways that we're grinding and maybe we're not even thinking about?
So one of the things that happens is our relationships. For example, there's research that shows that when we are very stressed out, our partner can start to develop symptoms of burnout. And most people I talk to are like, well, no, I try and not bring it home. The operative word there being try.
Right.
Because you are. You know, there's no way that you can be in that kind of mode all day and just shed it in an instant when you get home. So you need to develop some kind of ritual to transition from your work life to your personal life. You need to alert your brain that it's time to bring it down a notch, that you don't have to be, because when we're at work in a difficult environment, in the grind, we're in fight or flight mode.
Yeah.
And our brain doesn't really distinguish well between whether that battle is in a boardroom or on a battlefield.
Yeah, and our partners will see it in a snap at home over some small question or small inquisition. And instead, it's like our stress from whatever we're ruminating on or thinking about or working through comes out in these moments.
Yes. And so it's really important to really create some kind of ritual that teaches your brain that when we start doing this, it's time to unwind a little bit, as much as you can.
So what are some examples of rituals that have been effective?
So you want to involve as many senses as possible because that kind of goes a little bit deeper and teaches our brain more comprehensively. So number one, sound. So whatever music is very evocative. So whatever music calms you, relaxes you, signifies to you the end of the workday. Our clothing. Change clothes when you get home or when you finish your workday at home into clothes that you associate with your personal life rather than work. Now, if you're wearing T-shirts to both, have a set of T-shirts that work and have a set of T-shirts that isn't work. Our clothes are very impactful on us. The idea of a power suit or this, it's because certain clothes make us feel powerful, certain clothes make us feel relaxed. So make that distinction. Use lighting to shift the mood. If you're working from home, you can shift the mood with changing the lighting. It can be, creating more light, less light, but create that kind of shift. You can even use candles and the olfactory sense, but try and come up with a same ritual that you do on a regular basis, because that'll really train your brain. When this starts to happen, it's time to unwind.
Yeah.
The other thing is that our brain doesn't distinguish well between physical fatigue and mental fatigue. And so when we feel drained at the end of a workday because we just had 8 or 9 hours of difficult meetings and what have you, we, plop down on the couch and feel like, I can't do anything, I'm too tired.
Yeah.
You're not physically tired. You're mentally tired. And if you then just plop down on the couch for 3 hours then you will wake up tired the next morning. Because although you didn't deplete your batteries any further, you didn't recharge them. To recharge your batteries, you need to do something that's recharging for you. That's an individual thing. If you're athletic, you need to work out. If you're an extrovert, you need to socialize. If you're an organizer, you need to organize. If you're creative, you need to do something creative. You don't have to spend all evening.
Right.
But you need to dip into the things that recharge you. And you know what they are, because when you do them, even, let's say I like to work out. When I work out, I might be tired at the end of the day. But after the workout, despite expending energy, I will feel more invigorated. I'll feel recharged. I'll feel like, oh, now I have energy, even though I just spent energy. And so don't confuse the mental fatigue with physical fatigue. Most of us are sitting all day.
Yeah.
Or standing, or, but we're not, it's not physical labor, as you said. So it's like, find the things that are recharging for you and do a little bit of that. And it's important on two fronts. First of all, that'll recharge your battery. It'll really kind of allow you to come out of the work mode in an important way, but it will also reinforce aspects of your personality that matter to you, that are meaningful, that you don't get to express usually during the day. And that, will keep you a more well-rounded person rather than just the work drone that just works and works and works and works and works.
And I think for some of us, it is even a change of environment, with so many of us working from home, being in work mode at home. There's no boundary. There's no trigger to our brain to say, okay, I'm able to unwind. So I know my wife and I like to go on a walk and leave the device at home. Just let's leave. We both work from home. So it's like, hey, let's leave the house. Let's go on a walk together, no phones, and engage. And for me, I love cooking. I love working with my hands. So I'll choose a recipe that's written in a book or from my head and not a device. So I have that separation, and then I cook dinner. And I think that for me is recharging. I know, like, I love seeing people light up with what I'm cooking and what they're eating. And I enjoy just the science of cooking and working with my hands. And much of my day is spent on a laptop or on calls. It's a totally different experience.
Well, cooking is a great example. And it's also a great passion to have, because it ticks so many boxes. I mean, yes, it's working with your hands. It has this immediate feedback loop. You can kind of go into a flow state when you're cooking. But the product is also nourishing to other people. So it's a way of giving, to the people around you and to yourself. I think it's great. Anything that has to do with working with your hands is a great idea. Going for walks is a great idea, because, and especially leaving the devices at home, because especially if you can be around nature. I live in New York City. It's not necessarily that easy to find nature when you're going for a walk. There are not that many parks that you can have access to, but it's really important to try and find something like that, because it's a shift from your day to day. Most of us are on screens most of the day, and then we make the mistake of coming home in the evening and being on screens again, and our brain is like, I can't tell the difference between what you did all day and what you're doing right now.
Yeah, and it's funny. There's a comedian who had a joke about, you finish your workday where it's a screen, and then you come home and it's just even more screens. Maybe the screen's bigger, and now you got 3 screens in front of you: your Apple Watch, your phone, the TV, and it's just screen after screen. Right,
and your brain doesn't know the difference, and so your brain is still in this, heightened kind of mode. You want to kind of think about what your day was like, because our days can be different sometimes, and then you want to do something that's different from that. You want to be in a different mental mode than what you did all day. If you're problem solving all day, then you want to do something that's more creative. And if you're trying to think creatively all day, then you want to, think about something that's not that creative. Like, you really want to try and balance so that, you're giving your mind something else to think about. I'm going to mention one other thing that people can do, and this might sound silly.
Okay.
But our brain takes calendars really seriously. And so I suggest most people, when they have their calendar, it's like chock full of all these different colors during the workday, and then just blank in the evening, unless they have specific plans and then there's dinner here or this. I suggest fill in those blanks, even if it's with personal time, family time, resting, whatever the thing would be. Like, come up with because when your brain sees that that's your task for the evening, even if the evening is 1 hour of, personal time, date night, resting, unwind, kid time, it understands that that's my job now. It reminds you that that's your task. It's not a a blank thing that you need to fill. It's filled with doing the thing, whatever. So call it personal time, call it relaxation time, call it recharging time, call it recovery time, whatever you want to call it. But have something there that tells you there's a task here too.
Yeah, and I think with so many of us having notifications and playing our entire life by that calendar, there is the reminder of like, hey, I have this thing on my calendar coming up. It's my recuperation. It's my recovery. It's my unwind. It's now I know to go to the kitchen and actually start cooking.
Right. And why the word recuperation and recovery are really important here because, again, when we are in fight or flight all day, we weren't designed for that. Like when we were hunter-gatherers, we went on a hunt. That was a limited amount of time. And even, a couple of thousand years ago when life was more difficult, we weren't activated all the time.
Right.
And now we are all the time, day after day, for many, many, many hours of the day. So we need to recover physiologically and mentally from that high level of activation because there's wear and tear on the body and on our systems. And that's how burnout happens. And that's how people get sick. That's how people, really start to kind of, fall apart.
Yeah.
Literally, because there's no break in their system. So the recover time is, yes, you are under a lot of stress during the day, recover.
And for many of us, myself included, I've been known to doom scroll too. So much of our entertainment and the things we choose to do outside of work are also activating, are also emotionally charged, whether it's a video about someone suffering or a political uprising or whatever's going on in the world. In those short bites that we're consuming, we're also activating that same system.
And again, I think it depends what it is because the political stuff, most of us these days, no matter what side you're on, consume it and feel outrage in a certain way. Outrage is highly activating in a negative sense. It's upsetting. It's stressful. It's distressing. So that's not a best way or the best, mindset to have in your evening. Now, if you want to have somebody I know and she said to me I'm really good at spending the evening doing the things that I find relaxing. I have such a difficult job that I get home and I just want to watch the stuff that I like to watch. And I'm like, what do you like to watch? She goes, I love stuff about serial killers. And I'm like, oh, that doesn't sound right. She goes, it is for me. I'm really fascinated by it. I'm not activated by it. I'm not sitting there I can't believe they murdered another person. Because it's about serial killers, they are. I just find it engaging. So for her, that's relaxing. It truly is. But it's not so much what you're watching or what you're scrolling. It's what is it doing to you emotionally? What's the reaction that it's engendering for you? And if that reaction is, again, negative, it's outrage, it's upset, it's disgust, it's really then it's not a great idea. That's not how you're going to come. That's not how you're going to come down.
Well, let's talk about that because I know for many of our clients, when you've been living in that heightened emotional state for so long, you don't even realize you're doing it. You don't even realize the sensations in your body, the tension that you're carrying, and the stress that is outwardly expressed to others, you might not even recognize. So for those in the audience who maybe aren't as in tune with their body to know that about themselves, what can we do to start to bring our senses back to that and recognize that we're choosing things that are creating that?
Well, even if you're not that in tune with your body, you do have a sense of where you're getting activated. I mean, if you're outraged, people do feel that sentiment. You just ask yourself, what am I feeling in a given moment? This is the thing most people don't do. We don't pause to ask ourselves, wait, how am I feeling? And if the answer is upset or bad or annoyed or irritated or angry, then you're not using your time wisely, because those are not the things you should be feeling. Those are activating feelings that you probably have a lot of during the day already as well. Yeah. And so just pause, start by asking yourself, well, what am I feeling? And then ask yourself the other question, which is more important, and what would I like to feel in order to feel relaxed? What relaxes me? What makes me feel good? What makes me feel fulfilled? What makes me what do you feel when you're cooking?
Yeah, that flow state for sure of just time fades away. I'm zoned in on the ingredients and thinking about exactly, and my senses being activated, right? It's got smell, taste, touch, all of it.
Right. You want to feel absorbed in something without any negative emotions coming up. And again, when you're in flow, you're not aware of what your feelings are. But no one is watching the news at night and they're in flow. I can tell you right now.
No. I think for many in the audience, their default is, I just need more rest. I just need to rest.
Rest is not sufficient. You need to recharge. Rest, people who get home and just rest, wake up tired because they didn't recharge. What will recharge your batteries? Rest will prevent depletion, further depletion. But what's going to recharge you? What's going to make you feel invigorated? What's going to make you feel like that was worthwhile? I'm so glad I did that.
So how do we identify that? I know you have a great framework in the book, red, yellow, green.
So that's about like email management. And one of the things about email management is, just to be realistic, we might want to try and do those things in the evening, but most of us do have to respond.
Yeah.
The emails are at least check, right? And so I'm going to say first about the email and then I'll just the other thing. So what we need to do is frame in our head that how we're dealing with the emails is actually an intermission from what we're actually doing that is recharging. And so we figure out like, okay, if this is the recharging thing, then I might need to take a break to check emails. Do it all at once. You don't want to check continually. You will not be present in whatever you're doing. Figure out the time ahead of time. If there are other people around, let them know. I'll be taking a 15-minute break to check emails. And the red light, green light is a way to signal your brain that you still have that feeling of autonomy. You're still in control of your time. It's very demoralizing to us that we don't feel in control of our time. And when emails start flooding in, we don't. And so one way you can regain that back is telling yourself, like, emails are flooding in, but I don't need to address them every minute. I can take 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and do it at a certain time. And if somebody's saying to you, why couldn't you respond earlier? It is none of their business. You might have been getting a massage. You might have been getting busy. You might have been doing, having an intimate moment. You don't need to explain that. You can just say, I wasn't available. But then do the 15 or 20 minutes. But that is an intermission from the thing that you find is recharging. Now, most people know, it's cooking. For me, it can be various things. It can be working out. It can be writing, but not, creative writing rather than, psychology writing. Most people know what it is. Socializing for people, organizing for some people. It can be painting. It can be anything creative. It can be doing puzzles. Most people know what they kind of feel. And again, the effect is that you want to finish that thing and feel like, I'm glad I did that. Now I feel good. If you don't know what that is, then that's a problem. You've been working so hard, you've completely lost touch with that. And then trial and error. Go back to what you used to like in high school, what you used to like in college. Experiment until you find the thing that captures you, that does what cooking does for you, that puts you in flow, and it's something that you enjoy. Even if you feel a little tired and maybe I don't feel like it, once you start doing it, you have your juices flowing and it really kind of works for you. That there has to be some recharge going on in the after hours. And then again, if you need to do the emails, use that kind of red light, green light signaling of like, now taking a red light just to do the intermission, and then I'll get back with the green light to continue what I was doing.
I think many of us have this sense of always on, meaning I get out of bed and I got to start checking email and I got to start tackling work. And then I'm going to bed and I'm still checking my notifications and email and what's going on at work. And we talked a bit about rituals. In my life, a lot of the rituals are around the evening. Are there ways in the morning to set us up for success, to start to regain that control of what we have versus just giving it all to work?
Look, first of all, yes, about checking emails at night. Nobody knows when you went to bed. So why you don't need to respond to it. If it's 11 o'clock, then let's say you went to bed at 10. And if it's at 10 o'clock, let's say you went to bed at 9.
Right.
You know what I mean? In other words, just let it wait till the morning. But don't wake up and do that right away, because it's immediately like a smack to the head.
Yeah.
Like, give yourself, the morning can be a good time to kind of ease into the day, to kind of have some good time in the morning. Like I talk to some people and they're like, I walk my dog in the morning, or I do that in the morning, or there's this kind of, I do the crossword and I make breakfast. I'm like, it can be a nice time, but it's not a nice time if you're already thinking about work.
Right.
Like, have the discipline to decide when your workday begins. Because unless there's something really urgent going on, whether you can take that half an hour in the morning to just start the day relaxed and also you'll enjoy the morning more. Because that's where the stress doesn't end. It's the last thing at night. It's the first thing we do in the morning. There's no time where work isn't intruding.
Yeah.
So you have to carve it out. And the morning, take some time to carve it out.
And that intrusion for a lot of us is our inbox, because it's where everyone else is placing demands on us. I need this, I need that. That is where the intrusion starts. And if you're starting your day with your inbox and you're closing your day with your inbox, you have no time for yourself.
Yes, it's exactly right. And you have an obligation to yourself. Like, you get to have, and again, this is not asking too much, half an hour in the morning for yourself. And people are like, well, I need that half an hour. And I'm like, no, you don't. Because if that half an hour is the critical part between, what you'll get done at work, then I'm telling you, you will work more productively and more efficiently if you give yourself that half an hour in the morning and you don't get up with an angst of, now I got to check emails at work. Give yourself time to kind of ease in.
In terms of those of us who are in situations right now where we're recognizing the work environment is not for us, but we don't feel that we can leave, right? The instability that's in jobs right now. We talk to a lot of our clients who really despise their job, hate their boss, have these really strong negative feelings, and that can consume you in such a way that you lose sight of everything that is meaningful to you. You lose sight of the things you used to enjoy, the things that light you up. And we've had clients in the past say, well, I can't even think about going and socializing and doing those things that I used to do because this is just consuming me, my hatred of my job or my frustration with my boss.
Okay, and I would say to them, you are allowing it to consume you. And if, we don't have control over a lot in the workplace, there's one thing we have control over, our mind. And assert that control. This is a lot of what the book is about.
Yeah.
It's like the one variable we can control and it will have a significant impact is our mind. Now, for example, if the story you're telling yourself, and it might be true, but if the story is, I hate my job, I hate my boss, I can't stand going to work, it means that you are creating stress throughout the workday and you are setting yourself up to be upset and stressed out all day. And I would wager, without knowing the people or what their job is, that there are certain moments in the workday, in the work week, that are not terrible.
Yeah.
There are plenty that are, and there are certain moments that are not. So be more tempered, because when you're saying, I hate my job, I hate my boss, you're setting yourself up to feel upset and resentful and stressed out. You are creating more of a grind than is actually there. So all you need to do is be more accurate and say, I have a really shitty meeting with my boss this week, and I have, today, and I have another stressful couple of meetings, but there are some easier parts to my day. I can actually take a lunch today because of what's going on, and I can try and think of something enjoyable to do for that half an hour, and maybe I'll think of that. In other words, be more balanced, more accurate. And that can take a lot of the stress out, because when you say, I hate my boss, I hate the grind, it's my job is terrible, you are setting yourself up to never get a break emotionally, psychologically, even though there are breaks, because it's just, you'll sit there stewing throughout all of it.
Right. And I think a big shift for a lot of them is looking at, well, what are the skills that we're gaining? How is this a step to the next thing? Reframing what you're getting out of your job instead of focusing so much on the terrible relationship that you have with your boss or the things that you're not getting much joy out of, but maybe they are setting you up for that next level of success. Maybe that skill that you're learning right now that feels like a slog could be the unlock to that future role.
Absolutely. And if you're not thinking that, if people are not thinking that that's the case, then maybe redefine what your terrible boss is as, this is my opportunity to learn how to psychologically manage and emotionally better manage this kind of difficult manager. Because here's perfect training ground. They are very difficult. I can use this time to learn how to not let them overtake my life. And what a great skill that will be and how well that will serve me when I have other managers like that, because I might.
What are some other ways that people are sabotaging themselves and they're maybe not realizing through this work stress?
Well, one of the things actually within the workday is we have some breaks. Many people feel like it's meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting, but there are some breaks. And then the question is, how are we refueling during those breaks? Our go-to again, doom scrolling, social media, it's a distraction, but it doesn't actually refuel.
Right.
What might refuel you is a quick video call with someone that you care about, a quick walk around the block, even if it's 5 or 10 minutes, just getting fresh air, being out of the context of work. Like if you have 5 or 10 minutes, don't get the errand done that you need to get done. That's not a real break. But do find the things that actually are refueling to you. Because again, it's a marathon, these days. We need breaks in between. Otherwise, we really get to the end of the day, with our tongue out, like so tired. So we don't take advantage of breaks during the workday nearly as much as we should in an effective way. I mean, we do, but we just do things that are pointless and useless in terms of actually refueling us. And most people don't have this option, but even like a 5-minute power nap can be quite refueling. Now, most people don't, in a cubicle where they're power napping exactly.
Right.
But if you have the option to sit and close your eyes for 5 minutes, or let's say you have a vacation planned, looking at some pictures of the place that you'll be going and looking forward to that vacation, that can be refueling. It's somewhere you're going to be going. It reminds you that, I have a vacation coming up soon. It invigorates you. So find ways to actually use breaks during the workday to refuel, not just to distract.
I think one of the exercises we do with our clients, but a larger point is so many people have a more control than they realize, and they're in a reactive state instead of a proactive state to really set themselves up for that mental success. And if you just think about what your perfect work week would look like yourself, what you enjoy doing, the tasks that fire you up, where there's lulls, maybe you're out of energy, so you book your calls in the afternoon where they take less mental load and you don't have to really think through. Maybe you do really well with deep work in the morning. If you really just think what that perfect week would look like for you and start to move some things around that are in your control to shape the work that we are doing towards that perfect week, you can unlock a lot of that mental bandwidth that you're not even realizing right now. And we've had clients who, they have a manager who's demanding and wants things done, but they can get that stuff done on their own schedule. The deliverable matters around more than when they do it. And they can push back on the meetings and the stand-ups. Hey, actually, Thursday works better for me. But oftentimes we're not even trying. We're just saying, okay, put it on my calendar. I'll take whatever you give me. I'll follow whatever game plan you have. And that reactive state creates a lot of this tension that we're feeling and stress.
Absolutely. And in fact, I think we have way more options to curate in our work day than we assume. And some people don't have a lot of optionality, but many of us have some. And then curate based on when things are better for you. Don't just automatically say yes. Think about, when is that best for me? Actually, I have a very stressful meeting here, and this one's going to be really nasty. Maybe I don't put another difficult one after that. Let me just push that so I have a break, so I can get a breather between those things. The same thing is true in terms of curation. I mean, one of the complaints people have these days is my manager doesn't care about my development. I'm not really learning what I need to learn, etc. Even here, there's much more options for curation. In other words, first of all, identify what are the skill sets that I need to jump to the next level that I want to jump to, or to move ahead to where I want to move ahead. What are those skills? What are those experiences? If I'm not getting them, how can I get them at work? Most managers, if you come and say, hey, I want to take on this, will not object. They're not going to want to put time, thought, effort in figuring out what's good for you. But if you come and say, I would like to do this, they'll be like, fine. And it's no work for them. They'll be like, fine, go ahead.
Right.
If somebody else has a responsibility that you need experience in, you can go and say, hey, can I sit in? I'd like to learn this from you. Can I help out? If you show that proactivity, that initiative to learn what you need to learn, a lot of it is available. You need mentoring in something, go find it outside of work if you can't find it in work. But don't feel like unless it's fed to me, I can't develop.
Yeah, and I think oftentimes our boss has no idea the path that we truly want or care about. We may have had a couple conversations around, okay, this position is open or I want to do this thing, but your boss is not thinking about that constantly. They don't know exactly what are those skills that you need to unlock to get to the next level or what's the most important next step for you. But if you recognize, one, communicate that, I'm looking to learn more AI. It's important for me. I want to do a project that has generative AI. If you actually bring that up, then that plants the seed that if those opportunities arise, I will let you know. And if your boss doesn't let you know and you see that opportunity, then you bring it up to him of, hey, I see this other department is working in this. And we had a client recently who was in a job where he just felt he was grinding and he saw people get hired outside, promoted ahead of him, and felt really like he was stuck in this role that he needed skills to break out of, but his boss was not giving him those opportunities. And he caught wind of a completely different department working on this project. He told his boss, hey, I'd love to help support them on this. His boss was like, well, as long as you're getting your work done for me, sure, if you want to. And all of a sudden he got FaceTime with a completely new department and they were doing generative AI stuff that his department doesn't do. And now he got to unlock that skill, but that was him being proactive. That was not him waiting for his boss to say, hey, we're working on AI now. Let's bring you along.
Most bosses are like that. In other words, they're too stressed out themselves to start putting extra thought into what you need. But few bosses would actually thwart you just for the sense of thwarting you. So if you go to them and you give them something that it's an easy yes for them, they'll say yes, most likely. So that requires you to be proactive, you to identify opportunities and say, hey, here's an opportunity, can I do that? And most bosses will be exactly like that. As long as it doesn't prevent you from doing your work, and you could say, this will not prevent me from doing my work. I just want to add it because it's a skill set I think would be really, really useful. That has to look good to a boss.
Yeah. And then the flip side of that is also recognizing that sometimes going after learning that skill might not be a skill that you really care about or want, but it creates the face time with the people who will be impactful to your career growth and an opportunity to work with new people outside of your department, to get exposure to new lines of business and areas that maybe your skill set would better align.
Right.
So I think that's another thing. If we just get too focused on how does this directly benefit me right now, or how does it get the skill that I need right now, we miss those opportunities that are always hidden.
This is what happens to us psychologically when we're in the grind, when we're under stress. We go on autopilot. We kind of put our head down and just go from task to task to task. And we don't lift our head enough to go like, wait, what do I need to do? Is this the right thing for me? How do I need to develop? How do I need to resolve this? Like we just don't have the wherewithal because we feel exhausted to really take control of so many of the things that we can take control of. And so all these things that you're saying are so important because they are different examples and different manifestations of don't be on autopilot. Don't just go with the flow. Don't just grind it out and grind it out. The grind, by definition, is a head down kind of posture.
Yeah. And it doesn't get rewarded at work. You
no,
think
it doesn't.
It does.
Yeah, no, it doesn't get rewarded because it actually, when you're head down, nobody sees you in this.
Yeah, so you
way.
miss the visibility, but then you also don't demonstrate to the leaders that you see the bigger picture. So what you're talking about, that tunnel vision, it's like, I have my to-do list. I just have to get through these tasks. If I just slog through this, then I can get to the PlayStation, or I can get to the vegging out, I can get to the rest. But you miss the opportunity to zoom out, look at, well, how is what this task is impacting the greater goal of the company, the team, and those are the people who recognize that get ahead. They are the ones that create the visibility that leads to advancement in their career.
Right. And to ask yourself, A, what can I do? Again, I always say this, we're like, for the company that will be noticed.
Yeah.
Like all these acts of, good citizenship and bravery that happen outside of people's, like eyesight. It's great. But, and what can I do for myself to get ahead? What can I do for myself to advance myself? Like, be selfish. Like, not at the expense of other people, but be selfish in terms of how is this helping me right now? And you have to have that question run continually. It's not a once a year question. It's an ongoing question. Like, is this working? Is this not working? What do I need? How is this advancing me? Okay, now I'm starting this project. Great. But after that, what?
Yeah, I think with that, if we are in a posture of waiting for the feedback, waiting to be told what to do or what to improve or what skill we need, we've already fallen behind in this work environment. So we have to be not only our biggest cheerleader and celebrating our successes and socializing our successes, but we also have to be continually asking, like, okay, what is that next thing that I need to be growing, or what is that next skill set that I need to be focused on to get myself ahead? We can't assume that your boss knows or cares enough with the stress that they're feeling.
Right. And then that also means having that same kind of thinking about any obstacles that you come across. Because what I hear from a lot of people, and I'm sure you do too, is this feeling like, well, but I can't do that because, but my boss will never notice me because they don't like me, because we don't get along, because there's, all right, if your boss doesn't like you, why don't they? How can you improve your relationship with them? Who do they like and why do they like those people? Like, every obstacle is a question about, okay, why is the obstacle there? How do you get around it?
Yeah. What can I do, right, to take my power back and to assert my control versus be the victim, which is I just have this terrible boss, or I work at a company that grinds me.
Right.
So as we wrap, are there some quick hitting things that would be really impactful mental health wise for those of us who are slogging in that grind?
Yes, I end the book with a chapter about vacations.
Yeah.
Because it's another one of those things that we don't do well. I mean, we think we do. But in fact, there are a few things about vacations people should keep in mind. More shorter vacations are more effective than one big long one, because the impact of a vacation kind of ends after like a week or so. And the other thing is you want to rest before your vacation. You don't want to work until the last minute to get ahead, because then it'll take you half of the vacation to get into vacation mode, and you won't be able to benefit from it.
Yeah, and I think, unfortunately, many of us don't do a great job of preparing for the vacation, so we end up working more than we had wanted on the vacation.
But again, preparing doesn't mean working ridiculous hours right before you go on vacation. And we tend to do it out of habit, but we're not really asking ourselves what must be done now versus not. And the same way you do at night with emails, encapsulate it into a very limited amount of time, once a day, that you check in. And again, you're taking a break from the vacation just to do a little bit of work, and then you go back into vacation mode, in that sense, because you want to, like, vacations are really important to kind of remind you what life is about, and to be able to recharge, to be able to recover, to be able to, help your body learn a different way of being than just the grind and the stress all of the time.
Well, what I like about that is, with this rise of unlimited vacations, they found that people actually take less vacation. So companies will say, hey, you have unlimited vacation, take as much as you want. But then as a team, people just completely forgo going on vacation at all. And it becomes a team norm that we don't take vacations. And then if you try to take the long vacation, you really stand out. But if you take short vacations, long weekends, and you do it at a more consistent cadence, you get that great experience. You have something to look forward to. So much of the grind is the grind because we don't feel like we have anything on our calendar to look forward to. We don't have an outlet. We're just tunnel vision going from task to task to task.
Right. And so I think there's that. Also think about vacation, I believe in triple dipping.
Okay.
On vacations, in other words, you spend the time before generating excitement and anticipation. Look at the pictures of the beautiful beach that you're going to be on, or the museums that you want to visit. Don't do it with spoilers. Don't see everything you're going to see, but generate excitement before, so that you can, experience the excitement or the anticipation of the vacation before you go. When you're there, make sure to have some buffer time to take your selfies and the videos and the media, because most of us make the mistake of, doing that instead of actually being present in whatever we're doing. So build in time to take the pictures, because those matter. That's what we're going to remember from the vacation. And then the third dip is when you get back. Immediately when you get back, organize it in some kind of way. Make a booklet, make a little,
highlight
sequence,
video,
highlight video, and then relive the vacation. And that way you kind of get the running start of the vacation itself, and the reliving of it. You get triple the value for the one vacation. And then if you have frequent vacations, that's a lot of the time that you're in anticipation or enjoying the reflection of some time away. And long weekends are great. It can be 4 days or something like that. You can pack a lot into 4 days, or if you're into more relaxing things, you can pack a lot of relaxation into 4 days, but plan them so that you're actually addressing the thing. One thing I want to say about vacations is that a lot of people with young kids or kids of all ages will plan a vacation around the needs of the kids, and it's not the kids that are grinding. It's not the kids who are burnt out.
Right.
It's you. So, people will say to me like, oh yeah, like I'm so spent at work, but we're going to take a week in Disney World, Disneyland. And I'm like,
that doesn't sound like a vacation.
How is this going to benefit you? I mean, because it's great for the kids. And if you had a limited vacation, but like, that's not enough time, like in other words, unless find some way to have adult time at the end of the day. You're usually going to be too tired to have adult time at the end of the day.
At the end of a Disneyland trip.
You know what I mean? So like, or do 3 days there, but 3 days of something that you would enjoy more. It's about you too. So, like address everyone's needs in terms of the vacation. The other thing is when you're in a relationship, talk to your partner about whether your stress is being transferred. One of the most unfortunate research findings is that when we're stressed out at work, we don't just fall short of our duties at home, we actively undermine our partner in unconscious ways. But, the kids come to us after they say no, we're like, sure, fine. Like we'll do things that will undermine them because, again, we're still in work mode. We're not back in home mode.
Yeah.
Talk to your partner and be open to what they're saying about how your work is spilling over into home and how it's impacting them, and take that seriously. No matter how driven you are at work, you're not trying to do it at the expense of your relationship or the expense of the emotional health of your partner. So have that as an ongoing dialogue. Be open to them saying, hey, this is too much, or I haven't seen you. I've seen you, but I actually haven't seen you. Like all I've seen is the work drone. Like, take that seriously because they're the ones who see you most, and they can point out where like you've lost the forest for the trees.
Right. Where you're a bit blind to what's actually going on. I think it's the vacation piece to me is one of those things where when we talk to clients around vacation, they simply look at it as like, okay, I'm taking this short break from work and then I'm getting back to work. But the triple dip of like, hey, take some real time and thought in the planning, and then how are you going to keep the memory going? Maybe it's buying something that you're going to use at home that reminds you of the vacation. Yes. My wife and I, we like to pick a dish that we have out on the vacation, then I try to recreate it at home.
That's lovely.
Within a few months of coming back. And we have these little recipes now that we've collected along the way that allow me to do the thing that I enjoy doing and us to be transported back to that great experience.
And again, I love cooking for that reason. When you buy the ingredients for that dish, certainly when you make it, but even from the buying of the ingredients for making it, it puts you back into the vacation mode. It can be 3 weeks later.
Yeah.
So that's a great way to, again, extend it. In other words, vacations are really important, but get the most out of them.
I love that. Well, thank you for joining us today. So many great lessons in here around, well, first, recognizing the grind and its invisible impacts, certainly how it hijacks us, but then practical ways that we can start to reassert that control. Where can our audience find out more about the book and yourself?
The book should be available everywhere. It's an ebook, in hardcover and audiobook. I do the reading. And they can find out more about me, about the book, at guywinch.com. They can subscribe to my Substack newsletter, social media, etc. But all the information will be at guywinch.com.
Great. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.